The cemetery was wet that morning, not from rain, it hadn't rained in 3 weeks, but from the tears that fell from my granddaughter's face. She stood closest to the grave, holding the funeral program like it was the only thing keeping her anchored to the earth. I'm Eleanor. I'm 86 years old, and I had just buried the love of my life after 58 years of marriage. People kept saying things to me that day, well-meaning things, empty things. He's in a better place now. He lived a full life. You'll be reunited again someday. The words washed over me like water, and I heard none of them. I was too busy staring at the coffin and thinking about the letter. The letter that had arrived the morning of his funeral. It was addressed to me in his handwriting, but I hadn't opened it yet. I was afraid, not of what it would say, but of what opening it would mean. As long as the letter remained sealed, my husband remained as I had known him. The moment I broke the seal, everything might change. My son Amir put his arm around me. Amir, who had been estranged from our family for nearly 20 years, who had come back only when he heard his father was dying. "Mother," he said quietly, "are you all right?" I wasn't all right. I was standing at my husband's grave, holding an unopened letter from beyond the grave, surrounded by my family, and I had no idea what was about to destroy the careful narrative of the life I thought I had lived. But I nodded. I said yes. I said the things you say at funerals. The gathering at our ancestral home was large. My children, Farah, David, and Sarah, came with their spouses and children. Grandchildren came with their own families. Amir came alone, as he had lived for 2 decades. The house that had once been full of joy and chaos felt suffocating with our collective grief. It was Farah who brought it up first. As it always was with Farah, she brought everything up first, with the confidence of someone who had always assumed she was right about everything. "We need to discuss the will," she said, not even waiting for the funeral to end. We were still in the formal sitting room, in our black clothes, the scent of funeral flowers still clinging to the air. "Farah," Sarah said quietly, "can we wait at least?" "I'm going to the lawyer tomorrow," Farah interrupted. "I want to know exactly what father left and to whom. I have a right to know my inheritance." David looked at Amir. There was something in that look, a question, a challenge. "I assume Amir won't be receiving anything," David said, "considering he abandoned the family." Amir's face went very still. I watched my son, this man I had raised and loved and lost, process being rejected in the sitting room of his family home while his father's body was still being mourned. "I didn't come here for money," Amir said quietly. "Then why did you come?" Farah asked. "Because he was dying, and I wanted to see him, and I wanted him to know I was sorry." "Sorry for what?" Farah's voice was sharp. "For running away? For shaming this family? For becoming— What exactly are you now, Amir? What do you do with your life?" I stood up. "That's enough," I said. My voice was quiet, but everyone heard it. After 58 years of marriage, 58 years of standing beside a powerful man, I had learned how to make myself heard. "Eleanor," Farah said, and her voice changed to something softer, something designed to manipulate. "I'm not trying to be cruel. I'm just asking what we're all thinking." "No," I said, "you're not. And if you were, you wouldn't ask it in my sitting room on the day we buried your father." But even as I said it, I knew that the discussion about money and inheritance and who deserved what was coming. It was coming as surely as death itself. That night, after everyone had gone home or retreated to their rooms, I opened the letter. My hands were shaking as I broke the seal. I recognized my husband's handwriting, careful, deliberate, slightly old-fashioned even as he aged. He had written to me from his hospital bed in those final days, the nurses said. He had asked for privacy. He had asked them not to tell me. I unfolded the paper, and I began to read the story of my life as it wasn't. My dearest Eleanor, if you're reading this, then I'm gone. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for so many things, but most of all, I'm sorry that you're reading this letter instead of me telling you these things to your face. I have tried 1,000 times to tell you, but I have never been brave enough. I have lived 2 lives, Eleanor. One life as the man you married, one life as the person I really am. And these 2 lives are about to collide, and I want you to hear the truth from me, not from others who will tell the story wrong. When I met you, I was a different man. I was ambitious, yes, but I was also kind. You made me believe I could be good. You made me believe that success and love could exist together. So I built a life. I built a business. I built a family. I built something that looked like everything. But I built it on a foundation of lies. The business I created, the one that made us wealthy, the one that allowed us to buy this house, to send our children to the best schools, to have a life of comfort, I built it by taking money that didn't belong to me. At first, it was small amounts. I needed capital. My business partner, your friend Marcus, he trusted me. He left the finances to me. I borrowed money, intending to pay it back. I had a plan. The business would grow. I would replace what I took. No one would ever know. But the business grew faster than expected. Suddenly, I wasn't borrowing anymore. I was stealing. Thousands became millions. And Marcus, trusting Marcus, never looked closely enough to see what I was doing until it was too late. By then, I was trapped. I had a family that depended on the wealth. I had a wife who was proud of me. I had children who expected a certain standard of living. To tell the truth would destroy everything. So I made Marcus disappear. Eleanor, I had your friend Marcus killed. I will never know if you'll forgive me for this. I don't expect you to. I don't expect anyone to. But I need you to know the truth. I need you to understand that the comfortable life you have lived for 58 years was built on blood and theft. After Marcus disappeared, I made sure the money was secure. I made sure that there was no way for anyone to trace it back to me. I became a pillar of the community. I became the man everyone respected. All the while, I was a murderer and a thief. And I did it all because I was weak, because I was afraid, because I chose ambition over integrity. I have lived these 58 years with that knowledge eating me alive. I have watched our children, and I have tried to teach them to be honest, even though I was not. I have watched you love a man who was a lie. I have built this family on a foundation of murder. And now I am dying, and I am finally telling you the truth. There is a garden behind the house, the one you always said was wild and overgrown. I planted that garden because I needed a place to come and remember what I had done. Every flower in that garden represents someone I hurt. Every tree represents a piece of my conscience that I tried to plant so that it might grow again, even though I knew it wouldn't. There is a sealed box buried beneath the oldest willow tree in that garden. Inside that box is documentation, bank records, proof of what I did, proof of where the money came from, evidence of the lie I have lived. I am leaving you that truth, Eleanor, because you deserve it. And I am leaving you my confession in the hopes that perhaps you can do what I could not. Live with the truth and find a way to make it right. I have always loved you. Even though I was a liar, even though I was a murderer, even though I was building our life on a foundation of injustice, I have loved you. That is the only true thing I have ever done. Forgive me, if you can. Your husband, James. I read the letter 3 times. I read it once, and I didn't understand. I read it again, and I didn't believe it. I read it a 3rd time, and I understood that the man I had loved for 58 years was a stranger. I sat in the dark of our bedroom. His side of the bed still smelled like him, and I thought about everything I had not known. About Marcus, who had been my friend, who had disappeared when I was 30 years old. Everyone said he had gotten into trouble. Everyone said he had run away. His family had grieved. His wife had eventually remarried. His children had grown up without him. And my husband had killed him. I thought about the comfortable life I had lived, the house, the education, the security, all of it purchased with blood. I thought about my children, who had grown up thinking their father was a good man, who had modeled themselves after him, who had inherited the lie along with the money. And I thought about the box beneath the willow tree. I didn't go to that tree that night. I waited. I wasn't sure why. Perhaps I was afraid that once I opened that box, the truth would become undeniable. As long as the box remained sealed, there was a possibility that my husband had been mistaken, that he had been confused by pain and medication, that the confession was a fever dream brought on by cancer. But I knew it wasn't. I knew that my husband, in his final act, had told me the truth. The next morning, the lawyer came to the house. Farah was there, dressed in her most expensive clothes, looking like she was ready for battle. David was there, looking uncomfortable. Sarah was there, trying to keep the peace. And Amir was there, sitting in the corner, watching his family like an outsider. The lawyer read the will. The bulk of the estate went to me, as was traditional. But there were specific bequests. Farah received the jewelry collection and a significant monetary inheritance. David received the business and stocks worth several $1,000,000. Sarah received the ancestral house where all of us had grown up. And Amir received nothing. Amir didn't flinch. He didn't argue. He simply nodded, as if he had expected exactly this. After the lawyer left, Farah turned to me. "I'll need to discuss my inheritance with the accountant," she said. "There are certain investments I want to make immediately. I assume the access to the accounts can be arranged?" "The lawyer has arranged everything," I said quietly. "Good," Farah said, "because with father gone, we need to ensure that the family wealth is maintained. We need to ensure that we continue to project the image of success that father worked so hard to build." I looked at my daughter. I looked at this woman who had inherited her father's ambition, but not, it seemed, his conscience. And I thought about the box beneath the willow tree. "We should discuss what father meant to leave us," I said. "He left us everything," Farah said, confused. "The money, the business, the house, the social standing." "He left us more than that," I said. "He left us a legacy of decisions we'll have to make." But I didn't tell them about the letter, not yet. I wasn't ready to destroy the careful illusions they had built. I wasn't ready to watch my children understand that their entire lives had been purchased with injustice. That night, I went to the garden. The willow tree was exactly as I remembered it. Large, old, bent with the weight of decades. The garden around it was wild, overgrown. But there was a strange kind of beauty in the disorder. My husband had done this on purpose. He had let the garden grow wild because he wanted it to look like somewhere that grief lived. I dug beneath the tree with a small spade. The soil was soft, as if it had been disturbed recently. My husband had buried the box perhaps a year ago when he knew he was dying. I found it quickly. A metal box, locked with a combination I didn't know. I brought it back to the house, back to our bedroom, and I sat on the bed and stared at it. I didn't open it that night. I couldn't. I was afraid of what it would contain. I was afraid that opening it would change everything irreversibly. Instead, I placed the box in the drawer of my nightstand, right next to my husband's letter. 3 days after the funeral, I found another letter. It was tucked into the cover of a book in my husband's study. My name was on the front in his familiar handwriting. Eleanor. If you found this letter, then you found the box. If you found the box, then you know what I've done. But there's something else you should know. Farah knows. Not everything, but she knows enough. 3 years ago, I told our daughter that there were things in my past that weren't honorable. I told her that if anything happened to me, I wanted her to know that some of our wealth had origins that were questionable. I told her that if she wanted to maintain the family standing, she would need to be strategic about what became public. She didn't ask questions. Instead, she asked how to hide it better. That's when I knew that my daughter was more of a predator than I ever was. I was a thief and a murderer out of desperation, but Farah is a thief and a murderer by nature. She simply hasn't had the opportunity to kill yet. Be careful of her, Eleanor. She is my daughter, and I love her, but she is dangerous. Your husband, James. I had to sit down when I read this letter. I had to process the reality that my husband had taken his final days not just to confess his own sins, but to warn me against our daughter. I called Farah to the house the next day. We sat in the formal sitting room, the same room where she had spoken about the will with such hunger. Your father left me another letter, I said. Farah's face went very still. What kind of letter? A letter in which he mentions you specifically. What did he say? Farah's voice was different now. Dangerous. The same danger I heard in my husband's warning. He said that you knew about certain aspects of his business that were not entirely ethical. Farah stood up. She began to pace. This was a gesture I recognized. This was what she did when she was planning something. This was the Farah who had always been my least favorite child, though I had never admitted it to anyone. Did he tell you everything? She asked, finally. I don't know what everything means, I said. Then I'll tell you, Farah said. She sat back down, and her face took on an expression of controlled determination. 3 years ago, Father came to me. He was in debt, significant debt, debt that threatened everything we had built. He said that he had made mistakes in his business dealings and that there were people who would destroy him if he didn't pay them back. He asked me to help. He asked me to do things that were morally questionable. So I did them, because he was my father, and I would do anything for this family. What things? I asked. I embezzled money from several investment accounts. I falsified documents. I moved money between accounts in ways that were illegal. I did whatever was necessary to help my father get out of debt. I stared at my daughter. I realized that I didn't know her. I realized that this woman in front of me was not the daughter I had raised, but someone else entirely. Someone my husband had raised, I supposed. Someone who had learned that morality was negotiable if the stakes were high enough. Did your father ask you to do these things? I asked. Eventually, yes, Farah said. But by then, I had already started. By then, I understood how easy it was. By then, I understood that the world rewards people who are willing to do what others won't. And what about your siblings? I asked. Do they know? No, Farah said. And they don't need to know, unless... She looked at me carefully. Unless Father left instructions in his letters that they should know. He didn't, I said. But I was thinking about what my husband had told me, that Farah was more dangerous than he was, that she was a predator by nature. Good, Farah said. Then we can keep this between us. We can protect the family by keeping it quiet. And if I choose not to keep it quiet? I asked. Farah's expression changed. Her face became cold, calculated, and very, very dangerous. Then I would have to do something about you, Mother, and I would prefer not to. The threat hung in the air between us like a living thing. My daughter had just threatened me. Not with words exactly, but with the implication that she was willing to do to me what my husband had done to Marcus. I understood then that I had given birth to a monster. It was Sarah, my quietest granddaughter, who found the truth. Sarah, who had always been overlooked in favor of louder, more ambitious siblings. Sarah, who had grown up in the shadow of her mother Farah, always second best, always less worthy of attention. Sarah came to me one evening while everyone else was asleep. She was carrying a folder, and her face was frightened. "Grandmother," she said quietly, "I need to show you something." I followed her to my husband's study. She showed me files on his computer, files that were password protected, but which she had managed to access because she works in IT and understood how to find hidden things. Inside the files were records, detailed records of my husband's business dealings going back 50 years, records of the money he had stolen from Marcus, records of payments made to people who had done unspeakable things on his behalf, records of the cover-up, and records of what Farah had done as well. My husband had documented everything. He had kept detailed notes of every crime his daughter had committed. He had recorded conversations. He had gathered evidence. "Your husband left instructions with a lawyer," Sarah said, and I realized that my granddaughter had not just found the digital files, she had found more letters. Instructions. A will within the will. He said that if certain things weren't addressed after his death, if the truth wasn't exposed, then all of this information should be released to the authorities. "He did this on purpose," I said. "He put the box in the garden on purpose. He left the letters on purpose. He wanted to force me to do what he couldn't do himself." "I think so," Sarah said. "I think he knew he was dying, and I think he knew that without intervention, Farah would get away with everything she's done. He set a trap, and he left you holding the key." "What do you think I should do?" I asked my granddaughter. "I think," Sarah said slowly, "that you should decide what kind of family you want to be. Are you a family that protects criminals to maintain reputation, or are you a family that tells the truth even when it hurts?" That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in my husband's study, surrounded by 50 years of evidence of a life built on injustice, and I made a decision. I called a family meeting. I told everyone to come to the ancestral house. I told them it was important. When they arrived, I was waiting in the study. I had the files open on the computer. I had my husband's letters spread out on the desk. I had the metal box from the garden sitting in the center of the table. "Your father left me something," I said when everyone was seated. "He left me the truth." What happened next took 6 hours. 6 hours of revelations. 6 hours of lies falling apart. 6 hours of a family that I had thought I knew turning out to be something I didn't recognize. I told them about Marcus. I told them about the murder. I told them about the money that had built the business, purchased the house, sent them to school. When I told them about Farah, my daughter didn't deny it. She simply stood up and walked out. She didn't come back. David, who had always been the cautious one, began to weep. He understood that he had inherited money that wasn't his, that his entire life had been purchased with someone else's blood. Sarah, who had always been the peacekeeper, was silent. And Amir, who had been estranged from this family for 20 years, looked at me and said, "I knew something was wrong. That's why I left." "How did you know?" I asked. "Because father tried to make me like him," Amir said. "He tried to teach me that the ends justified the means, that ambition was more important than integrity, and I couldn't do it. So I left. I spent 20 years running away from a truth I didn't understand." "I'm sorry," I said. "I'm sorry I didn't see it." "You loved him," Amir said. "That was your crime and your salvation. You loved a man who was unworthy of love, and that love blinded you to what he was." 6 months after my husband's funeral, I stood in the garden with Sarah, and together we began to plant. The overgrown wilderness that my husband had created, the garden of his guilt, we transformed it slowly, deliberately. We pulled out the wild plants, we tended the soil, we planted new things, beautiful things, things that didn't carry the weight of secrets. We planted roses because they represented hope. We planted herbs because they represented healing. We planted trees because they represented the future. And in the center of the garden, we placed a plaque in memory of James Chen and in hope for forgiveness. This garden is dedicated to all those who have suffered from injustice. May we build something better with the truth. The authorities had arrested Farah. She was facing charges for the embezzlement, the money laundering, and the forgery. She was facing prison time. But more than that, she was facing the knowledge that she had destroyed her own family to protect a legacy that wasn't real. David, after much deliberation and therapy, decided to return a significant portion of his inheritance. He used the money to establish a foundation in Marcus's name. The foundation provides scholarships to disadvantaged students. It funds research into financial fraud and corruption. It has done more good than 50 years of my husband's ambition ever did. Sarah eventually reconciled with the family, but only after Amir assured her that he bore no resentment. Together, they worked on healing the fractures that my husband's secrets had created. And Sarah, my quiet granddaughter, started her own business, focused on forensic accounting and fraud prevention. She dedicated her career to helping other families avoid what ours had endured. Me? I learned to live with the truth. I learned that the man I had loved was not real. The life I had lived was not what I thought it was. The legacy I had inherited was not something to be proud of. But I also learned that truth, however painful, is better than comfortable lies. That a family built on injustice will eventually collapse. That redemption is possible if we have the courage to face what we have done. On the 1-year anniversary of my husband's death, my entire family gathered in the garden. We sat beneath the willow tree, and we shared stories. Not stories about my husband's ambition or his business success, but stories about the small moments of kindness he had shown us, the times he had been present before the corruption consumed him. And then we sat in silence, honoring both the man he was and the man he wasn't. As I sat there, surrounded by my family, I thought about the letters. I thought about my husband's final gift to me, the truth. It was not a gift I had wanted. It was not a gift anyone wants, but it was the gift he knew I needed. I thought about the future. My family was broken, but it was also healing. We were building something new, something based on integrity instead of ambition. It was slower than the empire my husband had built, but it would last longer. I thought about Sarah, who had had the courage to uncover the truth and show it to me. I thought about the strength it took for her to choose integrity over family loyalty. And I thought about my husband, who had faced his own crimes and chosen, finally, to tell the truth. It wasn't redemption. You can't redeem yourself from murder. But it was a beginning. As the sun set on the garden, I made a promise to myself. I promised that I would spend the rest of my life living with the truth my husband had given me. I promised that I would honor Marcus's memory by ensuring his story was not forgotten. I promised that I would help my family understand that a life built on lies is no life at all. Most importantly, I promised that I would never again close my eyes to injustice because it was too painful to see. The truth is hard. The truth is painful. But the truth is also the only thing that can set you free. And in the garden that my husband had planted as a monument to his guilt, we grew something beautiful. We grew hope. We grew redemption. We grew the possibility of a better future. And that, I believe, was what he wanted all along.